Oh, good. Welcome back. Surly Talk Sports back in the saddle again for your Thirsty Thursday. Plenty of sporting action to tuck into this week, so really looking forward to covering off all the biggest talking points from what was a jam-packed Easter long weekend of sporting action. Of course, as always, brought to you by the legends at the TAB. Really appreciate their support, so if you're not already a TAB customer, get around them, show the STS community is riding with them. None of this would be possible without their support. So truly grateful for that. She's been a big day on the tools already. Banged out a Warriors pod this morning with the legend Jacko Ford. So that'll be popping up on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Probably later on today, to be fair. He's a great yarn. Didn't know much about his story prior to having a chat to him. So cool to hear from him. Also, importantly, the Mighty Coat, we kick off our season. Harbour Grassroots Rugby gets underway this weekend. The premier competition at home, 2:45 kickoff at Harvey Wright, the old graveyard as she's effectively known, taking on Mahurangi in what should be a good first up hit out for the lads. So fingers crossed, get named tonight at the old captain's run, and your mate Surly will be trotting out there for about game 140 of the best. Be great to dot down for a cheeky little meaty too, get off the nudie run early doors, but I won't be holding my breath there. Historically, I tend to go up in twos, just banging conversions. That's more my style of play. But hey, you never know. So looking forward to running around on the Sat the Arvo with the Mighty Coat lads. We've also got a wine and cheese night at the club after that, so she'll be full steam ahead and absolute scenes. But enough of that, plenty to rip into, so let's kick her off. Big Fizz. Tell you what, I think it's clear to see from the first 4 rounds of the NRL so far, if you rock up in this competition and you're not on your best, almost any team in the comp can trip you up. Besides the Titans, there are now no teams still on the donut, so shout out to the Gold Coast sitting lonely at the bottom of the ladder. And you do have to wonder, of course, no Tino for the rest of the season. They were boosted by the return of David Fafita, but still that wasn't enough to get them home against the table-topping Redcliffe Dolphins. Pretty crazy to think 4 rounds in that Redcliffe sit atop of the ladder, so a massive shift there from Wayne Bennett's lads, but some interesting results and the upsets continue to roll throughout this competition. Shout out to Penrith, still too good for the Chooks despite not having Nathan Cleary or James Fisher-Harris, arguably the two best players in the game in their respective positions. Jerome Luai, he's now won his last 9 straight without Nathan Cleary, so to all those Luai haters out there that say he's nothing without the people's chin, then a bit of a statement there for you. The Broncos, they ended the Cowboys' run off the back of a masterclass from Adam Reynolds. What a kicking game he brought to the table. And then I also thought Patrick Carrigan, aka Patariki Carrigan, he was outstanding. Shout out to Tommy Dearden, chase down of the year on old Mudders Cobbo, but we'll touch more on that later in your Better Bear Battler of the Week. The Bunnies, they're off the bottom of the ladder, and congrats to them getting their win over the Dogs. They're not going to get back-to-back wins though. The Wales are going to put them to the sword this week. Benji's Tigers, a huge win for them, 17-16 over Parramatta. Absolute scenes at CommBank. Shit, the Tigers faithful, they rocked up in big numbers. It sounded like a home game for them, a bit of a battle of the West. How good was Monday night footy as well? Easter Monday. It kind of makes you want it to be brought back into the mixer. Great to settle down late in the piece to round out the weekend, and what a way to start the week as well on the other perspective. Lockie Galvin, shit, the kid's a footballer. To be honest, when he came into the comp, watching a lot of his highlights, thought he looked one for the future for sure, but his game was built largely off the back of a dominant running game through the age grades, and I just didn't think it was going to translate into the NRL. It's not easy to do that, but the kid looks so confident, only 18 years young, already taking the ball to the line, playing eyes up code, that try he put on for Dream Buller, perhaps a bit of a glimpse into a bright future ahead for Benji's Tigers. Shit, he's got them playing with plenty of pride. They look like a team that's up and about and really enjoying their footy at the moment. Zachy Lomax, big news from him and the Red V. Congrats to them for getting the win over Manly, but Lomax, he's now got out of his contract at the end of this year, and he will be a free agent heading into 2025. It does make you wonder whether the Dragons will look to move him early, a bit of a player swap, and see what they can get. Plenty of chat out of Parramatta Parramatta, perhaps Ryan Madison in a straight deal. I think that would be a good deal for both of those clubs. Para could do with an outside back, and the Dragons, they love stacking up second rowers and locks, so I think that would be pretty fair. If not, I guess Zach will go to the open market, and I'm sure there would have been plenty of clubs on the blower over the weekend to his agent, seeing where he is keen to go. Sad news for Lukey Met, the Jet. Unfortunately, he's going to be sidelined for a lengthy stint. Of course, the Warriors 6 been going great guns this year. He's just looked so settled, so confident, added some weight to his frame, still has that elusive speed about him, gave us plenty of X factor on that left edge, and he just looked every bit a consistent first grade footballer. Of course, fresh off the back as well as signing that extension, so it's great to have him locked in for a bit longer at the Warriors. But this was a harsh break for the kid to swallow, and geez, you got to feel sorry for him. Snapped his tibia in his right leg off the back of a doozy of a tackle from Tyson Frizzell. Nothing wrong with it. Just a great shot round the legs, and you could hear the impact through your TV screens. If you're at Mount Smart like myself, it certainly made you wince. At first, I thought it was a ball shot, thought he'd copped his shoulder to the nuts and he was going to be able to shake it off. Unfortunately, though, that wasn't the case. Just the 9th minute of the match, he was an early departee, had surgery. They're saying he'll be back before the end of the year, so that is great news. And then also great news, of course, that half depth that we've been bragging for weeks about now. Now we get a chance to see it on display. Tamaide Martin coming into the mixer, Chanel Harris-Tavita getting through 70 minutes in that 6 role on the weekend. So hardly panic stations, but a sad loss there for one of our best through the first 4 rounds. The Warriors, overall, great win for us over the Knights, 20 points to 12. A good win in what was a pretty grindy game. Teams are showing up now, ready to take on the Warriors. We're no longer the hunters, we are the hunted. It appears we're getting everyone's best, and the Knights were no different. They came to the Fortress looking to pull off an upset, and for the large majority of the game, they didn't look like doing so. I thought we kept them nicely at arm's width, and to be fair, that Bradman Best try in the 74th minute, that was pretty patchy. I thought our boys really showed up. Our defense was tough as shit. Attack, not quite gelling to 100% yet, but a good win and a great 2 points. Back-to-back wins, that is exactly what we needed after back-to-back losses in the first couple of weeks. The Knights, they hung tough, really good goal line D from them, which restricted us to scoring as many points as we would have liked. I thought Ponga was good, especially to start the game. Nice couple of line breaks off the back of some pretty poor kick chases, it must be said, but I was a little surprised when he got 4 points in the Dally M's come the end of that game. I've harped on about it enough over previous pods, but I really just don't get this Dally M method at the moment. Was he strong? Yes. Was he the Knights' best? Was he the best player on the paddock? I would beg to differ. For me, standouts, RTS, absolute gun, and great to see he's been getting accolades left, right and centre this week. Over 280 run metres, I think he had 7 tackle breaks, his stats were through the roof, and that's exactly what you expect from Rog. Of course, Dally M fullback winner in the past. We know how much of a quality player he is. Always high metres, high efforts, high carries. He's going to get through his work. That cheeky little left to the bump on Adam Elliott, probably the highlight of the game for me. An absolute freak. I thought Mitchy Barnett was very strong. Wade, what a difference he makes through the middle. Of course, the CEO of Ruck Manipulation, as I've so fondly dubbed him. Again, his ability just to stay square, but play across the face of the ruck with his passing game is elite. Set up that try, just playing straight square through the ruck, picked on Saifidi and catch you later. He was exceptional, gave us a little heart attack again, as he does throughout this game's going down with a bit of an injury, but managed to get on up and play through it. And we're so much a better football side whenever we have young Wade Egan in the mixer. Jacko Ford, outstanding, thought he was a real workhorse, got through another 80 minutes, first try scorer in this game. Believe he was paying 17s at the TAB to dot down first as well, so if you're on board with that, you would have been one happy punter. Curdy Capewell, thought he got through a shit ton of work, yet again, as he always does. He'll never be beaten for effort, and he showed up and gave it his all. Unfortunately, suffered a bit of a delayed concussion late into that game, so he's been ruled out for this week, but another vintage shift there from Curdy Capes. I thought Rocco Berry had a strong game, as he seems to do every week now in 2024, and again, broken record, but another strong day for SJ off the boot as well, over 600 plus kicking metres, a good day for the Prince of Penrose. So overall, we banked those 2 points and we moved on. Would have loved to have seen a 13 plus win, and I think if we add a bit more polish to our attack, then that was certainly in the round. Deserved winners though, we were clearly the better football side. Again, we got dragged into the grind, and it's good to see us come out the other side and get the win. If you can win pretty, you'll go a long way in this comp, but if you can win ugly, you'll go even further. So promising signs yet again from the lads, another tick in the box, and now we look forward to this week. In terms of this week's games, there's plenty of good ones to rip into. Gonna highlight 3 or 4 that really jump out of the book at me tonight. Storm taking on the Broncos should be a goodie, this one. Kemi Munster back for the Storm. That groin, it's recovered from one of the great shower slips, and he will be back wearing the 6 jersey, which no doubt is a big relief to old Craig Bellamy. Really interested to see how the Storm go tonight. This is their first chance to really see them back at full strength. I think they've won their last 11 straight games at home as well, so expecting a big performance for the lads from Melbourne. On the other side of things, Broncos, Adam Reynolds, he's going to have to show up again, lead the team around the paddock with precision. Good to see Big Ben Takura debut as well. Going to become the tallest ever player to lace up in the NRL. 2 meters 05, I believe. So he is now the new Big Ben, overtaking Benny Matalino. Interested to see how he goes. A tough assignment first up against a fired up Storm pack. Then on your Super Saturday, STS feature match of the week. Bunnies taking on the Wars. 5 p.m. footy. Strap yourself in. It's going to be an absolute doozy. Apparently the weather forecast, she's pretty atrocious in Sydney. They think it's going to be monsoon-like conditions, which could drag things down a level, and again this game could turn into another grind. For me, the Bunnies, they've been patchy as Patches O'Houlihan, so this is a chance for us to go over and get the win against a side that of recent really has been our bogey team. If you cast your eyes back to last year, I believe Mount Smart, this exact fixture, the Bunnies came over, took us on in the torrential rain and came away with the dub. This year we flipped that though, and hopefully we can right those wrongs and put in a solid shift. Of course, Chance Nickel Clockstar, great news for us. He is back in the 1 jersey. He's recovered from that hamstring niggle, and he will wear the 1 jersey for the first time this season. His inclusion for me, it's massive for our attack, which at times has looked a little clunky, like I've said, especially in that red zone. He provides that polish that we need out the back. So many times on the weekend and throughout the first 4 rounds, we're pulling off our shifts, we're executing some pretty good shape, but by the time Dallin gets his hands on the Steadin, there isn't the overlaps that he was so used to back in 2023. Me personally, I put that down to Chance not being in the mixer. He attracts defenders, he hides himself so well out the back of those sweep plays, and his ball playing ability, with all due respect, it is a level up from Tane and Rogers in my humble opinion. I think people forget just how good Chance is. I tell you what, another reason why I'm excited to see him back is that we finally get to hear the end of this debate, and I don't even think it is a debate, as to who should be wearing the 1 jersey for the Warriors long term. Has anyone even asked Roger if that's where he wants to play? Of course, he's been out of the game for a little while, slightly older than what he was when he left. Fullback, you get through a shit ton of work. To me, at centre, I thought he looked great. I think the best thing for our team is to have both Chance and Roger out on the paddock. Chance is an exceptional fullback. Roger is an exceptional centre. He's looked great there defensively as well. So why people want to keep dragging on this debate when Webby, he's clearly said that Chance is our number 1. Time to move on and flush it, and I think a vintage first up performance from C&K this week will go a long way to doing just that. Tamare Martin, he comes in for Lukey Metcalf, wins the right to wear that 6 jersey first up. An interesting one for me. I think many people were expecting to see Chanel Harris-Tavita. Again, you've got to factor in the fact he took last year off. We're only 5 rounds in, so perhaps throwing him in the deep end starting in the 6 jersey is just a bridge too far this early in the season. Also, Tamaire, he was very solid for us last year. He was the one player that Andrew Webster hand recruited for that squad, so clearly Webby rates him highly. His well-established combos with Jacko Ford and Marcelo Montoya on that left edge as well, and I do think it makes a little more sense. Perhaps perhaps we see Freddie drop to an 18th man role like we did last week. Then you got Chanel off the Remu who can cover hooker, he can cover the halves if there's an injury, and then he can also cover lock second row at a pinch if needed. So I really like Tamaire starting in the 6 just for the makeup of our 17. Marata, he comes in to start in the second row for Curdy Capes. So a bit of a rose amongst the thorns there with Chance coming back, but unfortunately we lose 3 bodies. And positive news though, of course, it is a milestone game for the great man Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, raising the bat on 200 of the best. Of course, left across to go to rugby, tried his hand with the Blues, played for the All Blacks as well, so a successful stint there. Since he's come back, looks like he hasn't missed a beat whatsoever. What a player he is. 59 career tries, 62 try assists, 11 line breaks, and a total running meters tally of 37,597. By my calculations, going off that number as well, he would have ripped at least 20,000 plus goosies, judging off a goosies per meter or GPM of 0.7, which is hissing stuff there. Dalian winner, premiership winner, former skipper, and now of course our strike centre. Can't wait to see Roger run out in this milestone game, and I've no doubt the boys will lift and look to put the icing on the cake in what is going to be a special occasion for one of the greats to either wear that Warriors logo on his left tit. For me, the Bunnies, they're right for the picking, and while we're missing a few key players, I think we have more than enough threats here to get the job done. Jackie Whiten, probably the biggest threat at the moment. Their left edge is always potent. Cody Walker, Whiten, Kolomatangi, that is a deadly trio. Chuck Latrell in there sweeping round the back, and they offer plenty on paper, but it hasn't quite been sticking for them. They've been the definition of clunky. Lots of weapons in the duffel bag, but I think we're going to be too good of a footy side. I expect us to go over there to a core and get the job done. Expecting a decent amount of Warriors fans to travel as well, so fingers crossed it replicates scenes of games in Sydney last year, like against Parramatta. We can just hear Warriors chants blasting through your TV screens, because I think that will go a long way to getting us a famous 2 points. Then the other game I wanted to highlight, Manly taking on the Panthers. Manly, they go unchanged despite shitting the bed against the Red V last week. They need to bounce back in a major way. Back at home, Sunday Arvo at Brookvale. DCE set to play his 310th game and become the club's most capped player in their history, so maybe that gets them up. James Fisher-Harris, he's back for the Rith though, so I'm going to tip Penrith in, but I am expecting a lift from Manly and what should be a special day for the old people's neck. And then finally, one to touch on, just for a big score alert, I think the Cowboys are set to pile on a world of hurt against the Titans. They'll be spewing off the back of a poor performance against the Bronx. The Titans, they're just there for the slaughter, so keep an eye on that. I think she could be one-way traffic and a potential cricket score pending up there in Townsville. Congrats to the Crusaders, who of course finally got it done, secured a win, and against a bloody handy football side as well in the Chiefs. A massive win for them before heading into the bye this weekend. Some real standout performers too. Thought Noah Hotham was outstanding in the 9 jersey. Shit, did he lift the tempo of their game. Johnny McNichol, 33 years old. Where did he come from? Of course, had some talent in his younger years, departed our shores. I believe he played for Wales, came back and made every post a winner on the weekend. He was arguably the best back in this contest. Intercept tries, the works. Man, did he turn it on and wind back the clock. A huge win for the Satyrs, and what impressed me the most was their ability to kind of chuck their usual standard of footy and their style of footy out the window, play a bit more razzle, throw caution to the wind. They looked like a team that was playing a bit more carefree, fronted on defence, bought the physicality, and made every post a winner, cashing in on opportunities and turning them into points, something which they'd really been struggling to do in those earlier rounds. Shout out to George Bell as well. Always good to see a hooker just flying onto a seed, corner flag it, one of the great meaties from about halfway out. He's about as tall as he is wide, but shit does he have a motor on him, and the kid can go. I think he was part of that extended World Cup squad last year who travelled with the All Blacks, so certainly one that I'm sure Razor and co have their eye on for the future, because he looks every bit an All Black Republic in the years to come. And positive news for the Satyrs as well. Of course, Blackadder, Fergus Burke, Brodie McAllister, all set to come back for them post the bye. Tamaiti Williams and Scott Barrett, they're due back in about 2 to 3 weeks as well. So the cavalry is now starting to come back for the lads from the Garden City. And another positive for them, based on how this competition is run, 12 teams, it's a top 8 format. You've only got to win 5 or 6 games to find yourself playing playoff footy. If the Satyrs are back to almost full strength, 1 to 23, I think they get Cody Taylor back at some stage as well, then they will be a force and not a side that many teams will want to come up against come the quarterfinals. The Canes, for them, she was a tough weekend. Cammy Roigard, unfortunately, the Super Rugby season for him is over. Suffered a horrible knee injury. He's had surgery and he's going to be out for at least 6 months, they're saying. Luckily for both the Canes and the All Blacks, we have good stocks in the 9 position, but it certainly is a big blow. He's arguably the best player going around in Super Rugby at the moment. To have him no longer on the paddock is cruel scenes. Every time he picked up the ball in this Highlanders game prior to going off, he looked every bit an attacking threat. So in Christie, TJ Perenara and Falau Fakatava, we still have 3 great options for the All Blacks. And the Canes and TJ, they have a great option to come in and start. To be fair to him, Jeezy's looked sharp. Of course, he's been coming on in that last kind of 20-minute periods of games to ice them off, but he looks fit, looks a bit lighter, still got that physicality and leadership about him. So the Canes, I think they'll be just fine, but it certainly is a bit of a blow for them. And saying that, they were clinical in this game at the Sistema lunchbox, put the Spates soldiers to the sword and looked bloody good in doing so. Set piece strong, breakdown strong, kicking game and razzle, they have it all firing at the moment. Ruben Love and Braden Yorsey both putting another big back-to-back performances to really raise their hand as All Blacks bolters even more. And I also thought Duplessis Karifi, what a luxury it is for them to be able to bring him off the bench. He's so aggressive, he just flies into everything, but it looks like he's added a bit more control to his game as well. And having him and Lakai as a 1-2 punch, that's got to be right up there with some of the best flanking duos in the competition. The Blues, they were able to pump Moana, a solid outing for them, led by Perifeta, Hoskins Satutu and Bryce Heem on this team. It was tough scenes for Moana. Unfortunately, they've conceded 107 points combined over the last 2 weeks. Their D has turned into a bit of a leaky sieve, and it doesn't get any easier for them this week, taking on the Chiefs, who will be stinging off the back of their loss. So I'm expecting a big performance for the lads from the Waikato and Tana's men. They need to dig deep here. They started the season pretty well, got a few dubs, and it looked like they'd really formed a bit of a culture, a vibe amongst the team, and they were putting some pride into that jersey. Ever since they went over to Perth, though, maybe that long road trip took a bit of a toll on them, but they haven't come back quite the same, and they need to bounce back in a major way. So on we march to this week, a shorter round with just the 4 games, with the Crusaders and the Canes getting the week off for the Kiwi side. So tomorrow night you have the Blues versus the Force. I'm expecting the Blues to be too good here. They have the bye next week, so I'm interested to see what their team looks like. Of course, recording this before your team naming Wednesday. The Force, they're coming dead last though. They've looked shit, to be utterly honest. They're probably still defrosting off the back of that Drua game as well. She's almost water polo like stuff over there. The water was pretty much ankle deep. You almost needed a snorkel if you were caught at the bottom of the ruck just to be able to breathe. To get me thinking, wonder how close they were to calling off a game like that. I'm not too sure if they've ever called off a game in Super Rugby either, but that was tough stuff. So no doubt the Force, they will be stinging from that one. Blues at Eden Park, I'm expecting 13 plus stuff there. Then you got the Rebels taking on the Drua, and shout out to the Rebels too. They're shambles off the field, and I've been very quick to point that out, but on the field they've actually been tracking all right, sitting in 6th, Drua in 7th, so this will be a nice little battle. I'd like to see the Drua pull this one off in Melbourne though, not Fiji, so I think it will be a tight contest. Then on your Super Saturday, you got the Chiefs versus Moana. Again, assuming D-Mac is going to be back for this one. I actually thought Josh Jacob, excuse if I've pronounced his last name wrong there, but I thought he was pretty sharp. Definitely looks to be a handy player for the future. Would be huge to get D-Mac back though. I know for a fact Shooter is being rested this week, so maybe Clayton McMillan does take the opportunity to rest a couple of rigs. They got the Canes in Wally next week. Can't wait for that game, and it's certainly one that I know they've of circled as a chance to make a real statement in this competition. And then you got the Brumbies versus the Tars to round us out. Who really cares about this one, to be honest? But shout out to the Brumbies as well, sitting in third, 5 wins from their 6 games. Every year they just seem to be quality. They go about their work, rack up these silent wins, almost go unnoticed, finish in the top 4, and then look to pull off a bit of an upset in the semis. This year appears to be no different, and I think they will be too strong for the Waratahs. On the topic of Aussie rugby, big news for them throughout the week. Joey Schmidt, he's made another astute addition to his coaching staff, adding the guru and ex-All Black scrum and technical coach for a long time in Mike Cron. A massive pickup for them, forming quite the coaching team, and I'm looking forward to taking on the Wallabies this year. I have reasonably high hopes from Schmitty that he will get the best out of this team. When you listen to the All Black players talk about the biggest influences on their improvement towards the back end of last year in that run into the World Cup final, a lot of them credit Old Smokin' Joe, so maybe he can have an instant impact over there. Mike Cron, he's a handy coach as well, takes a lot of IP with him, and it'll be great if the Wallabies could get back to being a strong rugby nation, just to really boost that old rivalry that we used to have, because shit do I miss those Bledisloe Cup days. John Eales, Sterling Mortlock and co, where you go into these contests not knowing who's going to get the dub. It's fair to say she's been a bit of a dead rubber in recent times. And then shout out to the legend. Speaking of the All Blacks, of course, the big news from this week, Crusaders and All Blacks stalwart Sammy Whitelock has called time on his career. One of the greatest locks to ever wear the silver fern logo on his left tit. A workhorse, one of the game's genuine hard men, durable as shit. He's a leader, skillful, a pillar of our forward pack, so good at set piece time, led our lineouts, and every week that Sammy Whitelock was named in that locking duo, you knew that he was going to put in at least an 8 out of 10 performance. He must have heard the rumours that Razor wants him back, but clearly he's got nothing left in that ageing rig. So he's come out and announced that this year in France will be the final of his professional footy career. What a player. He'll certainly be missed in New Zealand rugby. I think 17 years he applied his trade here professionally. So Sammy Whitelock, an absolute legend of the game, one of the greats to ever wear the black jersey. You'll be missed, but thanks for your contribution, horse. What an absolute legend. Weekly wrap time now, and of course 10 days left in the NBA before we get into the playoffs. Now is where the cream starts rising to the top, the going gets tough, and the tough get going. She's the business end of the season. Good to see the Dallas Mavericks. They're on a nice little run. They've won 7 on the bounce now and 9 of their last 10 games. One of the big movers post that trade window. Of course, they acquired a couple nice assets, made a few good moves, and then in Luka and Kyrie, they've got 2 superstars that are absolutely on fire, sitting in 5th in the West. If the comp was to finish today, then they would take on the Clippers in what would be a mouth-watering first-round matchup. Would love to see that, so shout out to Dallas, going great guns there. Joel Embiid back today, huge news for Philadelphia. They've managed to stay in the hunt, sitting in that 8th position at the moment, so currently playing in that play-in game, but now they get the chance to welcome back last year's MVP, and he was probably going to be this year's MVP as well, prior to injury and having to miss the last couple of months. He was averaging 35.3 points, 11.3 rebounds, and 5.7 assists prior to that injury. He's an absolute weapon, well and truly changes the look and the fortunes of the 76ers side. So excited to see how he looks as he ramps up towards this playoff run. And with him back in the mixer, Maxey and co all cooking, then you'd be silly to write off Philly. An unintentional rhyme there. How good. Then at the other end of the scale, the Warriors and the Rockets, they're in a nice little battle to get themselves into the play-in. And then shout out to the Raptors, who are doing a great job at tanking the shit out of their home run here. They've lost the last 14 straight, almost don't recognise more than 1 or 2 players in their starting lineups. Some real names that only the purists would know. Kelly Olynyk, he's been their best player on the court night in, night out, which says it all really. And well done to them. If you're going to tank, you may as well go the full hog and just play absolute nobodies. They want a high lottery pick, and they're going the right way about it. A clinic in the art of tanking. Jumping across to boxing, and a quick shout out to Joe Parker, who probably had one of the best call out videos that I've ever seen. Posted it on his own social media. She was a doozy, calling out the body snatcher in Dillian White. If you haven't seen it already, make sure you head along to his Instagram, and it appears there won't be that rematch with Zhang. He now wants a different type of biff, and I'd love to see him take on White. There's unfinished business there, but this was elite stuff from Joe. I reckon the greatest call out in history by a country mile, and good to see him showing off his humour. He's an absolute roost. And then last but certainly not least, shout out to the Wellington Phoenix, top of the table after a 1-0 win last week against the old Brizzy Raw. They're taking on the Mariners in Gosford this weekend, first versus second, so a huge top of the table game for us. A win or a draw would be a massive result. There's only 3 rounds to go, and we actually take on the third place team in Melbourne the week after that as well. So a massive 14 days ahead for the mighty Knicks. Imagine though, if they can hold on to that top spot, finish minor premiers, that would be absolute scenes. So get around them, New Zealand, the old yellow and black. They are still one side in the comp. They're pretty much the Warriors of the A-League. So up the mighty Knicks. Fingers crossed they can go over to Oz, get the job done, fly back home to take on Melbourne next week, absolutely trounce those losers, and book us our first ever minor prem in the A-League. What scenes that would be. Green ticks on bet slips, that is always the goal whenever we talk punting, of course. Brought to you by the TAB. If you're not already a customer, sign yourself up. There's promos, boosted options, power plays galore, including that Surly boost, which I'll be cooking up shortly after this podcast and chucking up on my social media for you to all get stuck into. First up, we'll have a look at the NRL. I'm going to touch on those games that I highlighted earlier. We've got the Storm taking on the Broncos, Warriors, Bunnies, Manly versus Panthers, and Cowboys versus Titans. Those are the 4 that tickle my fancy for a cheeky flutter on this week. For the Storm Bronx, Storm go in $1.44 favourites, Broncos at $2.70. The line is 6.5, and the over-under is set at 38.5. Melbourne, they've won their last 11 straight games at home and 14 of their last 15 against the Bronx. They're a real bogey side for the boys from Brizzy, and I expect them to be too strong here against a still injury-depleted Broncos team. Melbourne, they've won both halves in 6 of their last 7 games at home as well. An interesting one here, bit Ivan Leary, but Will Warbrook has been the first try scorer in 3 of Melbourne's last 4 games where they've gone in as the favourite. So if you like the brick to bag a meaty early doors and score first, paying $9 I believe, then that is a good shout. Ryan Pappenhausen, the snack, the flying mullet, he's also scored 6 tries in his last 3 against the Broncos and 9 in his last 10 night games at Amy Park. This game will be played under lights, of course, Thursday night footy. Can't wait. So stats suggest Storm head-to-head, Storm half-time, full-time double, and either Warbrick or Pappy to score. All good shouts in this game. For your Bunnies versus Warriors, Bunnies $1.97, the mighty One New Zealand Warriors $1.79. The point start is only 1.5 points, and the over-under is set at 41.5. I think the Bunnies have won the last 8 straight against us, but history is made to be broken. They've lost 7 of their last 8 games in Sydney, which is a stat that I much more prefer. They've also failed to cover the line in their last 11 games, which suggests that the Warriors are going to win by more than 1.5 points. Your try scorers, I like Dallin here. He dots down this week with Chance back in the mixture, adding some polish and some shine to our attack. And much like last week, tipped out Jacko Ford and Adam to cross through the middle. I also think we're going to dominate the middle of this Rabbitohs pack as well, so don't mind a big boy to cross, and this week I'll just go straight out and say I think Big Dinny, Adam Fanua Blake at $5 is a bit of jam. RTS in his 200th, of course, love me a milestone meaty, so that is also worth a cheeky little side investment. In terms of your power plays, Cody Walker or Adam Fanua Blake, anytime try scorer and either team wins 1 to 12 is paying $4.50. Historically, Cody Walker loves bagging a meaty against us. He's been in shit form to start the year, but he's a quality footballer, so I do expect him to bounce back at some stage. That gives you the double play, and I do think this game could be reasonably tight due to those weather conditions, so $4.50 there for a Warriors win, and then either Cody or Addin to Dot isn't the worst. I also like Dallin to score more tries than Tane Milne. Power play paying $2.40. I think that is easy coin. Manly versus Penrith. Penrith have won each of their last 8 straight against the Gulls, and Sinia Taruva, he scored 11 tries in his last 8 games, so Penrith into Taruva will be my bet for that game. And then Cowboys versus Titans. Like I said before, I've highlighted this one because I think there's going to be points aplenty. Cowboys have won 10 of their last 11 home games against the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast, they've lost 6 of their last 7 games by a margin of 13 plus points as well. So this suggests she's going to be a humping. Cowboys 13 plus into Tommy Dearden is jumping out. But I think this is a great one for your same game claims as well. Kyle Felt, the Felt tip, Tuolangi, Jeremiah Nanai, all of them I expect to bag a meaty. Scotty Drinkwater as well. So this could be a chance to land some juicy try scorers in this one and have yourself a day. In terms of your Magic Multi for your NRL action, I've gone with a 4-legger oval ball mega multi buster. Misses by 1, I'll get my money back as a bonus bet up to $50. I like the Warriors minus 1.5. I like the Storm and the Roosters head to head, and the Cowboys 13 plus. That's paying $5.14. Yes, please. Then jumping across to your Super Rugby, and speaking of same game claims, I think there's some real opportunities here this week because I think there's going to be some one-sided results, particularly in those games involving the Kiwi teams. You got the Blues taking on the Force. Blues are $1.05 favourites. You don't get much shorter than that. So your same game claim is where you're going to extract some juice here. I also like the Blues 13 plus, but your try scorers is where you're going to make your hay. Rebels versus Drua, chance for an upset. I don't mind the Drua in this one, like I touched on earlier. The alternative point start, though, giving them a 12.5 point start, is still paying $1.30 at the moment. I think that's the best way to go. The Rebels to win in a tight one, but you get the insurance of the Drua in case they can pull off the upset. She'll be ticks on your slips. Chiefs 13 plus, D Mac back. Surely they have too much in the duffel bag up against Moana Pacifica, and I think they make a statement. And then I like the Brumbies over the Tars, just head to head, that Aussie conference. She's all over the show at the moment, paying $1.30. So for your Super Rugby oval ball mega multi-buster, she's a bit shorter this one, but I think you just bank it, build up the kitty and move on. Chiefs 13 plus, Brumbies head to head, Drua on that plus 12.5 alternative start, and then the Blues 13 plus at $2.51 when you multi those up for your bet of the week. 7 from 9 now, hit again last week. These things, they're pretty much shoo-ins now. Warriors into Blues paying $2.21. Help yourself. This week, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Running it back with the Warriors, but then chucking the Storm in the mix as well. Both head to head, paying $2.57. You beauty. And then your Magic Multi, hit on that as well. The Phoenix, of course, was the last leg we needed to salute. They did the business, 1-0 over the Brizzy Roar. Huge fizz there. So we're now 50% on our Ivan Leary multis as well. Punting up a Storm at the moment. This week, I'm going Chiefs 13 plus, Dallin anytime, and then I'm going back on the Phoenix, sticking to that same method. I like them in the double result market here of either a draw or a win, paying $2. The bookies have disrespected us here. The TAB, I love you, but you're giving the Phoenix no show, so jump on that. Maybe a draw, if not a win. Huge result for the boys. That's paying $8.26. Get on board. And in your NBA, if you're looking for an upset today as well, on your Thursday, if you're listening, the Thunder, they're paying massive dollars against Boston to get the win. Now, it is in Boston. Tough to beat that team on the road because, geez, have they looked good. But they did rest SGA and Jay Will yesterday, the Thunder. They're on a back-to-back, but their 2 best players didn't play. Could they pull something off here at $3.70 odds? I don't mind it for a cheeky little flutter, a little side investment there. But make sure you check out the Punters Lounge to see all the promos available. Like I touched on before as well, that Surly boost will be cooked up for you shortly, and you'll be able to have a punt on that. As always, gamble responsibly, but again, shout out to the TAB. Really appreciate their support. Right, Better Bear Battler of the Week time now, brought to you, of course, by the legends at Better Bear. Fair to say I tucked into a fair few of these over the Easter long weekend. There's nothing better than parking up on the couch, cracking open a cold one, fresh out the fridge, and ripping into some sporting action. She's zero carbs, so it's good on the rig. You don't get the guilt, that guilty feeling after a session on these like you do with other beers. So head into your local alcohol store, grab yourself a box of Better Bears. She's an absolute day for it whenever this quality brew is in the mixer. And it's fair to say this week, I say Battler of the Week. He's far from a battler, but I thought this was a performance in a real moment in a game where he showed elite heart and battler-like characteristics. And that was the great man Tommy Dearden with that chase down on the fridge Selwyn Cobbo. Of course, Cobbo, he's been on the wing for the Kangaroos for Queensland. He's known as one of the faster men in the game. He is a bigger body, but shit, he can certainly move. And when he picked off that intercept, I thought he was gone for all money, but no one told little Tommy Dearden, the Fox Terrier. He was about 40-50 metres away on the opposite side of the field, started chasing after him. I thought there's no way, what a waste of energy, but a huge effort play there from the Cowboys skipper. But metre by metre, you could see him closing in. Then once he got his hands on Cobbo, a perfect ankle tackle, managed to hold on to him long enough as well to ensure that his body went out over to the touchline before he was able to ground the ball. A huge play there from the Cowboys co-skipper. He just showed that battler heart and mentality. No quit in the kid, and he looks like he's going to be a mainstay of the Queensland Origin side for years to come off the back of that display of heart there. So Tommy Dearden, you're far from a battler, but you showed traits of one of the great battlers there. Refused to quit. The bloke, he never says never, chasing down Selwyn Cobb and Co. A huge play. So for that shift, you're this week's Battler of the Week horse. Look forward to watching you put an absolute clinic on against the Titans. Tell you what, he'd be a good anytime try scorer bet as well. Have a feeling he might cross for a meaty off the back of that inspirational play from last weekend. So good on you, lad. Q&A before I call it a day and send you on your merry way. Again, chucked it up on the Instagram story. The questions flooded in as always. Very popular segment and really appreciate you all for getting around it. Your first one is RTS, the best fill-in fullback we have ever seen. Yeah, bit of tongue-in-cheek there, but certainly he is. What a performance from him. We've already touched on it. An absolute weapon. This week, though, we get to see one of the great duos we've ever seen in Chance and Rog. Both extremely talented, both elite in their respective positions, and I can't wait to see how it all looks. I really do think Chance is going to give us those finishing touches on attack that we have been lacking over the last couple of weeks, but Roger, certainly a more than capable replacement, and how nice is it to have both him and Tane there, should anything happen to Chance. Touch wood, it doesn't. I don't have wood around me right now, but if you are listening and you have some wood around you, then make sure you touch it. Fingers crossed nothing happens to the great man, but if it does, so nice to know we've got Rog there. Chuck him in the one jersey. He'll punch out 280 metres of the best and help yourself. Next up, how big of an impact to the Warriors season is losing Metcalf going to be? It's bloody unfortunate. Like I touched on, one of our best strike weapons throughout the first 4 rounds. He looked confident. He looked settled in the 6 jersey. Was really starting to make it his own off the back of some healthy runs, which is what he always just needed. Last year he battled in and out with injury, so it was good to see him string 4 of the best together before, unfortunately, this happened. Luckily, we're stacked in the halves. Tamaide Martin and Chanel, both very capable replacements, so I don't think it's the end of the world. At the same time, though, gutted for Lukey Met. He was a great asset for us, and I do think it takes down maybe our razzle factor slightly, but in Tamaide, we have a more than capable replacement, a strong ball player, brings something a little different, but we will miss Met the Jet, no doubt about that. Jay Gibson says, where does Sam Whitelock rank as an all-time lock worldwide and an all-time All Black? Shit, he's got to be right up there when you think of the great locks to ever play code. Well, for me, the ultimate has to be old Colin Meads, old Pine Tree, but Sammy Whitelock, I think he's right up there, tied now with our greatest ever All Black lock. Didn't see much of Pine Tree play myself, seen some old footage, of course, but he's always held in the highest regard, as I think Sammy Whitelock will be as well. One of the greatest locks to ever do it. You think your John Eales, your Victor Matfield, your Martin Johnson, players like that. Sam Whitelock has to be right up there. Often underestimated his impact that he's had in the black jersey and for the Crusaders as well. But every time he's in the lineup, he just fills you with confidence that we're going to get the result. Old Slammin' Sam, heck of a career. Sad to see it come to an end, but unfortunately, all good things do one day. Utah Man says, rate the best team song in the NRL to the worst. Best, extremely biased, gotta go the Warriors. Hearing the fans belt it out in the stands post the game has to be iconic scenes. You're hearing the Aussies at the moment talking about it, how they can hear it post the game, blast the nail over the ditch there, so it's becoming a real tradition, and you gotta love that. Shout out to Savage as well, one of the great vocalists. I think worse, right up there, probably the Queensland Maroons singing Aye Aye Yippee Yippee Aye. Absolute trash that, but that's probably me being biased. That new Tigers one, like I touched on last week, we are the Tigers, roar. I think one of the lines actually says as well, and if you think we're pussies, and then goes on from there, of course referencing the tiger being a cat, but that's got to be up there from Benj and Robbie Farah, some pretty dusty stuff there. When the Saints go marching in, St. George, Cronulla, the old up Cronulla, there's some pretty dusty ones to be fair, so we'll just stick with the Warriors being the best, and then everyone else literally being the worst, particularly if they're singing it after they bet the Wars. Riley Hamilton, Sam Whitelock, future Crusaders coach. Fair point, to be fair. Could well be. I know he's moving home. He's actually jumping on Waterlad this week with Jimmy Ma, so that will be a good listen. Doesn't scream to me as someone that would move into the coaching ranks, but then again, neither did Matt Todd, because they weren't exactly the most vocal players. But listening to Bryn Hall talk about Sammy Whitelock's impact on the team last week, you'd have to think he'll be involved in the setup down there in some shape or form. I think he was more a lead by his actions more than his words, but whenever he did speak, I'm sure everyone listened, and he's got a shit ton of IP and experience that I think he could really pass on to some young footballers, and I'd love to see him kind of move into a mentoring role with their two young locks at the moment, because shit do they look talented. So great suggestion there from Riley. Next one. The Kitchen says, what do you think about more games in Christchurch, please? Yeah, fair call there. The Christchurch fans certainly showed up in a massive way for that round 3 game against the Raiders. Hearing SJ and that talk about it too, it was certainly appreciated by the players. I think it's locked in for the next 3 years that there will be a game a year down there, and then that new stadium certainly makes it appealing to keep taking games there in the future. So I have a feeling the 03 will be set for plenty of Warriors clashes in the years to come. Next one, Torino 15. Do you believe the Drua are truly a top side or just a massive home ground advantage? When you look at their home wins versus their away, it's hugely different, and I respect teams win more at home, but when your opposition can't breathe, and then the question unfortunately runs out of rooms in the box. I get where you're going there, perhaps referencing to that snorkel I said that the Force players would have needed if they were caught at the bottom of a ruck last week. In the Drua, are they a truly top side? I think there's different tiers at the moment. For me, I'd have the Canes and still the Chiefs up in that top tier as your 1A and 1B sides. Then in that second tier, I'd probably have your Brumbies, your Blues, maybe your Reds right on the fringe of that. Then the tier underneath, I'd have the Drua and the Satyrs probably placed in there. The Drua, so strong at home, like you touched on, away, they haven't quite been able to put it all together. If they can beat the Rebels there this week, then that would be a good scalp to claim. For me though, if they want to show they are the real deal, then they do need to get a dub like that. I think they host the Canes at home in a couple weeks' time as well, so if they can pull off a dub there and hand the Hurricanes their first loss, then I think that would show they are the real deal. Would love to see them playing quarterfinals football like they did last year though. They're always such an entertaining team to watch, so I have high hopes the Drua can pull off some wins on the road and march into finals footy. And then finally, I am Tim Gore says, do hyphenated names add to the Warriors' success? Tamare Martin, Chance Nickel-Krokstad, RTS, CHT, and then a question mark. And look, I've been a massive proponent of this. I've been preaching this rhetoric lyric for a couple of years now. I'm huge on the importance of a double barrel last name to me. It just screams that you were born to be a rugby league footballer. Chuck Adam Fanua-Blake in the mixer there, and you got some of the star players at the club, and I believe it's no coincidence. Of course, last year we made it through to the prelim off the back of Adam, Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, Chance Nicol-Klokstad, but unfortunately we fell one short of going to the big dance. So I have no doubt that Webby cast his eye over this squad. He said, what more can we add? And then light bulb moment, fuck it, we're going to add more double barrel last names. In comes Chanel Harris-Davida, in comes Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. That probably pushes up to about 7 or 8 throughout the squad. Good luck beating that if you're an opposition football side, and I think that is going to be the difference in securing us a premiership this year. If you look across the comp, guys like the Hammer, of course, Hamasai Tabuai-Fidel, then you got James Fisher-Harris, some of the game's biggest names at the moment, they're rocking double barrelers, so does it make a difference? It absolutely does, and I can't wait to see all of those lads with some premiership rings on off the back of a famous grand final win from the mighty Wars. So cheers again for your questions, really appreciate them all, some doozies in there, and I look forward to hearing from you all again in next week's pod. So that's us for another episode of STS. As always, hope you enjoyed it. Really appreciate you applying my eardrums to all of this chat as well. Been a busy week on the pods, 4 of the best that I banged out yesterday, so hope you enjoy those. Check out One Take, check out the Pick and Go pod, check out the Advantage Line pod, and of course tomorrow, George FM Sports podcast as well. So she is all go. Up the mighty coat this weekend, we kick off our campaign and hopefully a 13 plus win there. Get up the Wars, Set Diavo, NRL, sink your teeth into that. Coupley better bears, nothing better. Chiefs and Blues, they will not lose, 13 plus dubs there, and that would be a great sporting weekend. So go well, hope you enjoy it. Up the Phoenix as well. Catch you back here next week. How good.